All right, welcome back to another episode of Fourth and
Whatever.
I'm Coach Evan's wife, Christian.
And I'm Coach Woodard's wife, Jenny.
And we're going to tell you a little bit about our perspective as a coach's wife and answer some questions that we got.
Yeah. First one up. What was your first thought or reaction when he said he wanted to be a coach?
Okay, well, I had kind of always known Philip wanted to be a coach. We started dating whenever I was in high school. And so it was like that was his ultimate goal, his dream. And so it wasn't like we had a sit down conversation of like, hey, this is what our life is going to be. When he took his first coaching job, we already had 2 kids. We'd been married for a few years. And so it was like, all right, let's figure out what we're going to do. And we'd had some people tell us, this is going to be intense. This is going to be hard. And, but we didn't really, we were just like, yeah, whatever. Okay. So is marriage and let's just get down with it.
Right.
But it was one of those things like I didn't know until I knew kind of a thing. We were living with his parents when we moved in, and that was really hard because he was gone a zillion hours, a day, and it was pre-COVID. And so it was like,
so really,
there was
really
like no rules. It felt like, and, so I just remember like I had a toddler. I had 2 toddlers. I think Maddox was like 5, 8. Well, I don't know if that's a toddler, but whatever. He was 5.
It counts.
And Jordan was like 18 months old, around that age. And I was at home with his parents, both of his parents, and I loved them. But just not being in your own space, you're moving to a new town, trying to figure out a new normal. And I just remember like one day I was like, this is going to be our life. Like both kids were crying. I'm pretty sure I was crying, and Philip's parents were doing their best to like help me as much as they could. But it was one of those like, okay, well, we're either in it or we're not.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was just kind of like, this is our life. And now that we've gotten into a routine, it's gotten better. But I mean,
it's a little
morning would have been nice.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a rude awakening. It's like when you take an ice cold plunge bath or something like that. It's like, it's going to be cold.
Yeah.
Like, that. But as soon as you're in it, you're like, oh no.
Like, oh, this is way colder than I thought.
But then you also like sit there for a little bit and you're like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, I think that was the thing for me is it was like once I got into a routine, it was like, okay, we can handle it,
Yeah.
But I know like Woodard comes from a coaching background, so I know yours is probably a little bit more prepared than mine was.
I mean, maybe a little bit, but I have this vivid memory of us being at his parents' house, and he has 3 other brothers that are in. If you hear the little kids running around,
sorry, those are my baby kids.
They're so cute though. But I have this vivid memory of being in his parents' house and listening. His brother had called his dad and his mom and was like, hey, I'm thinking about taking this job. I need some advice. I need a sounding board kind of thing, like running through the whole thing. And Preston was like, we were sitting in the dining room, they're in the living room, and he's like, pay attention because this is going to be us. I'm going to need to have a sounding board. I'm going to need to be able to talk this out because I want to be a head coach someday, and that involves a lot of transition and a lot of moving, and it's going to be really hard. And if you're not all in, then this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And so it was really, really hard. I think it was funny because my sister, when we were dating, she's like, are you sure this is what you want?
Like, I guess.
And I was like, I remember telling her, I was like, well, it's what he loves. It's his passion. He feels called to do it. And I love him. And I think that this is where God is like leading us and planting us. And I think that we decided really early on that this is going to be our mission field. And this is how we're going to glorify God and be an example. Because Preston, he's talked a little bit, but he's like adopted, sort of, kind of. But
hope so.
So his like biological family lives down here, and so that's kind of how we moved down here. But he also has like an adoptive family, and that's who is all the coaches and all that stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's been really nice to have a little bit of both sides of that and kind of learning from their different perspectives. But when he was growing up, he had great coaches that really like invested in him and made sure that he had everything that he needed to be successful.
Yeah.
And one of those coaches was his brother, his adopted brother. And so
cool.
It's really cool, and it comes full circle. And the option to even get to have that for somebody else is kind of like where I find that joy in a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's, like, a unique experience too because, I mean, not everyone comes from a family of coaches, although I'm
Yeah.
learning that most coaches come from a family of coaches, which
Yeah.
apparently is, we're the anomaly in that.
Yeah.
But I think that's important too, like, to have people that are around you that are like, "Hey, this, like, take a double take because, like, it's intense," and no one really know and I feel like if you're not in the life, you don't know that, and I know we've talked about that before, like, how our families react to our spouses being in
Yes.
sports and that being our lifestyle, and if you're not in it, then you're never gonna know what it actually is about and what it actually takes, and
Yeah, always getting the
just
questions at, like, weddings or,
yeah.
like, Thanksgiving or different family events are like, "Hey, where's so and so?" I was like, "Oh, he's at work."
Yeah, I mean, and depending on what their second sport is, pretty much from, like, July all the way to, like, April, May, just consider them
Gone.
done. Like, they can't and
Unavailable.
I saw something on Instagram this week from the Friday Night Wives where she was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's dead week," and I was like, "Oh my god, I didn't even think about that because it's the
Yeah.
1 week out of
So
the
1
entire
week.
year that
Yes.
we don't have to work." I was like, "Dang, I didn't really ever think about it because even spring break, it's like,
Oh, yeah, they're
you know,
working.
especially track, like, they're working and
Yep.
then, soccer season, all that kinda stuff. So if you're not in it, and then you're never gonna know. It's always gonna be like, "It's just a football game. It's not just a football
It's
game."
not. And it's funny because you said that because I think it was like it's for my job, the busy season is the spring season,
Yeah.
um, and for him, the busy season is the fall. So it's
Yeah.
like we had a really long football season because we played all the way
Yes.
until, like, December 12th.
A good and bad thing.
God bless, it was the best thing ever, but then we literally rolled Preston also did soccer,
Yeah, so he,
so
like, jumped straight into it,
jumped
right?
straight into soccer, and we also had a really long season for that. We went to
I
the
know.
same round of that, so we were playing until
I think it was, like, April, right? Or, like,
March,
March, sometime
late
like that?
March, I think,
Yeah.
maybe into a little bit into April, but I was just, like, exhausted. I
Yeah.
was like, "I just need, like, mentally, I need a break," like and somebody was like, how are you doing? Like, end of the year, so exciting." I was like, "I'm in the thick of it right now." Like,
Yeah.
it's not, like, slow and steady because for my job, I, like, do a lot of travel, like, or I don't, but, like, a lot of my
You handle a lot of people's stuff.
yes, and so it literally is just, like, one thing after another, making sure things are closed out, making sure everybody has everything
Mhm.
they need, and then I'm also, like, trying to manage things at home and trying to manage
Yeah.
I'm like, thankfully, we don't have kids just quite yet, and so I'm like that is, like, one of the things, like, you get kudos because, girl, you rocking it. I know you don't think you are, but
Most
you
days.
are.
Some days,
Some days
we're
we're
hanging
just
by a thread.
surviving, and that's okay, but that's just the life of what we do,
Well, and
and
that's hard too because, he's coming off of a season, so he's like, "Oh, like, we're gonna get some time together," and you're like, just kidding, like, I'm really busy
right.
right now," because I mean, I do the same thing, being a yearbook teacher. The spring, that's all of our deadlines, submissions,
Yeah,
and that's when I'm like, "Okay, I know you're exhausted and you're coming off of your coaching high, but
but
I
now is
need
your time
you
to
to
shine.
step up, like,
Yeah,
let's go, take the kids to where they need to be," and so, it's all a balancing act and,
100%.
it's a life we love, I guess.
Yes. Speaking of trying to find time for each other, how do you capitalize on time together during the season?
Um, I think for us, because we have kids, it is so incredibly important for us to have to be intentional about it.
Mhm.
There's nights where I may not go to bed till midnight, 1 o'clock at night because I'm staying up so that I can see him after a long game.
Yeah, for sure.
And after the kids go, same thing, like whenever the kids go to bed, like we have to say, okay, we're going to stay up tonight. Yes, we're exhausted. Yes, we have to get up tomorrow at 4 a.m. to get ready for
Yeah.
work, but like it is what it is. And
That extra couple minutes is so special.
yes, even if it's just like sitting down and debriefing about our day because, granted we work at the same school, but does that mean that we get to see each other? No.
No.
Like he may stop by, on his way back to class or something like that, but it's usually just like a hi bye and you're surrounded by students. So like you really can't
Right?
talk.
Yeah.
And so for us, like being intentional about that time and finding like little ways to be together, whether that's, we sit down and watch an episode of something.
Mhm.
Like we just started the Squid Games, the final
Yeah,
season like
right.
2 nights ago. And so we'll just watch like an episode of that a night. And I mean, it sounds like, "Oh, that's an hour long," but we're just sitting there and we're
Yeah.
just being in each other's presence and, we're very intentional about, like, when the boys go to bed, we try to spend at least 10, 15 minutes together, and then if he wants to go play his video
Yeah.
games, then you go do what you wanna do. I'm gonna go pull up a book or whatever.
Right.
But it's hard, and having 3 kids trying to find a babysitter is also
Yeah.
difficult, and so we try to at least get, like, 1 date night in a month if we can. This last season, we were so lucky. We had a great group of babysitters, so it was, like, every weekend we got
Yeah.
to have a date night, it felt like. But just little things like that, and, um, we've been in it a long time. We've been married for 12 years, and so you kind of get in that rut of, "Oh, we'll just talk to each other tomorrow."
Right.
And you just never know, what could happen. Um, and I will say we were very guilty at the beginning of our coaching journey
Yeah.
of taking those little moments for granted because he was so burnt out. And I was like, well, I'm burnt out of being around kids. So
Right.
just don't talk to me either.
Yeah.
And then we unfortunately saw like the downside of not making
Right.
time for each other, and marriage became hard. And then it's like, okay, well, now we have to like build this back up while
Definitely.
dealing with all this crap, you
Yeah.
know?
It
So I don't know. It's a work in progress, I guess. But
yeah.
I know, again, y'all don't have kids, but y'all have very busy, busy schedules
Yeah.
as well. What
S
about y'all?
so, we went to a retreat called Helping Coaches Coach, and I know y'all are going
Yes.
this December. I'm so excited for
Well,
y'all.
hopefully we'll still be in playoffs. But
Right.
if not, we have
Hopefully, you
plans.
won't be able to go, but also, like, it's so incredible.
Yes.
I
Yes,
am
yes,
excited
yes.
for y'all. But we went to that, and that was one of the things that they talked about is trying to find those little moments, and for us, it felt like the easiest thing to do was most of the time by the time he got home. I
Mhm.
Because we don't have kids, we kinda get the luxury of deciding when, we wanna eat dinner, and
Oh,
so,
yeah.
um, I typically try to wait for him most of the time to get home, and then I'll either be start like, in the middle of dinner or, like, ready to eat by the time he gets home.
Yeah.
So, the good thing was something that we learned was, like, "Okay, I'm still cooking by the time you get home because I want it to be warm, I want it to be fresh, all of that."
Yeah.
And so, he'll come into the kitchen and, like, no phones, like, because 'cause I'm cooking, and, like, we just have more of, like, intentional conversation at
Mhm.
that time, and it's, like, really special because for me, it was one of those things. It's like, okay, he's home when he's home all the time, but, like, it felt more intentional that he came in,
Mhm.
set his stuff down, made it a point, like it was funny because he even, like, had his, like, little Yeti cooler and, like, put it in the kitchen because we have a really small apartment right
Yeah.
now, and so that was, like, the best place for him to just sit. He just sat at the front of the kitchen, and then we just would sit there and talk, and while I was cooking and just talk about the day and how practice went and
Mhm.
all of that, and that's for me, that's what I need. I just need intentionality.
Yeah.
I need to know that you're, like, thinking about the
How is this gonna go? Yeah.
yeah, and the quality time of it, and so that's really special to me, but we also I grew up playing sports, so I also really enjoy getting to go to other football games.
Yes.
And since we don't have kids yet, we get to go do all of the travel games. So, like, we'll go
Mhm.
scout.
I would say y'all scout a lot together,
We
don't
do.
y'all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we first were together, it was funny because, I would, like, really wanted to be in it. And, like, I mean, I still really wanna be in it too, but he'd be, like, actually scouting, like, at his first school, he had to, like had
Like,
to do
really
a
paying
yeah, had
attention?
to do a full scout report and all of this stuff like that so that he could
Mhm.
bring it back. But he would be like, "Okay, when they line up for kickoff return, you gotta look at all the numbers, and you gotta tell me the
Oh my
numbers in
gosh.
order from top to bottom," or whatever, and I was like it was so
That
funny.
would stress me out
It was so
so
much
bad. I'm like, "Is
fun.
that a 6 or an 8? I can't tell."
Yeah, and I have you and I both have bad eyes, so
Yes.
it's like, "You're asking the wrong person." He's like, "Yeah, but you can remember numbers really well." I said, if you wanna say them out loud, I'll write them down. Like, I will remember that
You
part."
tell them to me and I'll write.
Yeah, exactly, and so it was like, we'd be, like, trying to do that, and he's like, "Babe, that's not a 19, that's a 12." And I was like, "Okay, sorry."
Well, and normally, like, when you're scouting, you're, like, sitting high up, like, away from everybody
Yes.
too, so, like, it's even harder because some of them stadiums, like, the bleachers go
Huge.
up.
Yes. Yeah, but that's, like, one of our things where we kinda make it a date night, and so
Yeah.
we'll leave a little bit early, we'll go get dinner, and then we'll go to, a game, and it's funny because one of the games we went to, um, we were up in the press box, and another coach. He was older,
Mhm.
been married, kids are grown, all of that
Ugh,
stuff, and
lucky.
and he, like, walked in and he was like, "So are y'all, like, on a date right now?" And he's like and he said Preston was like, "Oh, yeah, this is our date night right here." And he goes, "You better be taking her somewhere nice to eat after this." And he's like, "Well, we went to a nice dinner before." And he's like, "Good." He's like, "But I like to see this, that y'all are in
Oh,
it
I
together."
love that.
Yeah, it was
I
really special.
miss going like, when we first had Maddox, it was just the 3 of us,
Yeah.
and that poor baby, that's probably why he loves football so much. We would drag him to all of the football games
Yeah.
that were, like, in our area, because we used to live in Huntsville, so we would go
Oh,
to
yeah.
all of their home football games. We mentored a lot of those students, and so we would go watch them play, and then, they would have a lot of playoff games in, like, Willis and Montgomery, which was, like, a 20-30 minute
Right,
drive.
yeah.
So we usually would drag now it's too hard. We can't drag all 5 kids. Like,
It's too
not 5
many.
kids, all 5 of us. God, please don't give me 5 kids.
She said, "No." All I'm seeing
3 is
right now
good, 3 is good. I'm good, I'm good, I'm good.
all I'm seeing in my head right now is The Office with Michael Scott. Be like, "God, no, why?
Yes, God,
No."
no.
That's all I'm picturing right now.
I love my kids, just disclaimer, just 3 is enough, like, it's a
Yeah,
lot.
it
3 is
is
good.
yeah.
I'm good.
Kudos to you 'cause, I'm like 2 and I'm done. I'm like, "No, thanks."
Girl, you
But
say
the
that, I said the
Lord
same
will
thing.
do what he
I
wants.
said the same thing, I was done. I threw all my baby stuff away.
Yeah. What is the best advice for any coaches' wives moving or in a transition period?
I'm gonna let you start this one because
Yeah.
we didn't move. We haven't transitioned anywhere, obviously. I can tell you what I think we should do, but
Yeah.
you have actually done the transitioning. So I'm gonna let you
Yes.
start.
So Preston's been to 3 schools. His first school, we were engaged while he was at that school. So I did a little bit, but it
Were
was
y'all like long distance a little bit?
yeah, we
Oh,
were long
okay.
distance for a little bit. But that was also junior high, so it was a little bit different.
Oh yeah, it's not
So it's
quite
not the
as
same.
much.
He did work a lot more. But I wasn't there, so it was a little bit different.
Yeah.
But when we got married, we were at our last school at Diboll, and this is where I really just like learned so much about being a coach's wife because I had no idea what I was doing. But one of the good things that I really appreciated that happened was the head coach's wife. She, as soon as Preston had signed his paperwork and like it was
Mhm.
officially and all that stuff like that, she had found me on Facebook and sent me a message and said,
Aw.
"Hey, like, we're so excited to have y'all here. Like, please, here's my phone number. Please let me know if you need anything or have any questions. Like,
Oh, that's so
I'm gonna
sweet.
add you to a Facebook group that all of us wives are in." And it was really nice. It felt special, because I was like I remember being because I was, like, very anxious, and I was like, "I don't know why she's messaging me. Like, why is she
Am I in
messaging me?"
trouble already?
Like,
Like,
I was like,
what did I
"How did she already
do?
found me?" And he was like, "Why don't you just open it and read it?" And I was
Like,
like,
it's not
"That's"
that simple.
like, in my brain, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have to make" and then it's like you're realizing that, like, you're just, like, you have to, like,
Yeah.
make
You're
friends.
like, "Oh, crap, I have to talk to people now."
Yeah, and it's like and now I'm like, I can do it. It's not a problem, but it was just, like, the first eye-opening thing about, like, transitioning into a coach's life.
Yeah.
It's just different. And, but it was really nice to feel like I had, like, that welcoming, like, openness with that, and so
Mhm.
that was nice. Um, I do remember when we left that school,
Mhm.
and moved to this one, I truthfully was not a fan. I was not excited. Um, I had a lot of reservations
Yeah.
just
It's
because
new, it's
yeah,
different.
and it was hard because at our last school, we lived an hour and a half from my parents and
Mhm.
about an hour and a half from his adoptive parents, and so it was really nice. It was yeah, and I knew I had to keep reminding myself that he wants to move up, he wants to be a head coach. He needs to do these things to get to these goals. And so when he first moved down here, we came for an interview to meet the coach and all of
Yeah.
that, and I remember just driving around town and I was like, what are we doing?" Like
This is it.
like and I just was like, "This is gonna be interesting," and I remember telling myself, "Okay, if you're gonna do it, you have to be all in."
Mhm.
Um, and so I had asked Preston, I said, when he got done with his interview and everything, I said, "What do you think?" And he's like, "I love it." And I was like,
You're like,
"Okay."
"Alrighty then. I'm not gonna tell you how I feel then."
Yeah, and I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "What is," I was like, "I have questions," 'cause I
Mhm.
told him before. I said, "I wanna know what the dynamic is, like, with the coach's wife, like, what is that family needs to be important," because I felt like it was really important at our last school, and that
Yeah.
was something that was, um, really harped on, and, like, I feel like it's so easy to miss it if you don't have it, and then, like,
Yeah.
if once you have it and you lose
I
it,
know what
it's
you mean.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's just not the same, and so
You have these, like, expectations of, like, this is what I know, and so I don't wanna lose
yes,
that sense. Yeah.
absolutely, and so I was like, "I need to make sure that this is a good thing for us," like, because we don't have anybody here, like, his
Yeah.
adoptive parents are here, and so, like, that's been really special to get to know them a little bit more and, like, dive into that, but I was like, "I'm leaving everything
Yeah, you're leaving your whole
that
community,
I
you
know,
know?
and I'm not gonna see my parents as much, and we're not gonna see your other parents as much," like, it was just so much unknown, and it was very, very
Yes.
scary, and, but as soon as, like, we got here, I was still commuting.
Oh, that's right.
I was still working in retail, I was still, like,
It was, like, what, like, an
driving
hour at
an
least?
hour, but it was an upgrade because when we lived at our last school, I was driving an hour and a half.
No, okay,
But
that's
my
better.
parents lived where I worked at, so every now and then I would stay with them if I
Oh,
had to,
okay,
like,
yeah.
so it saved a little bit, but it was, like, so I didn't have time to make friends
Yeah, that's
because I
hard.
was working retail, I was working crazy hours, and I was just begging on Friday nights. I had to, like, "Can somebody please switch with me so I can go to this game?" Because it was literally the only time
Oh,
that I got
yeah,
to
that's
see him and
hard,
got to,
yeah.
like, because by the end of the day, it's like, I'll get home at 11:30
Mhm.
and he's, like, already he got home maybe an hour before me, and he's just, like, trying to close
He's
down again.
already, like,
Yeah,
mentally gone,
done. I'm
yeah.
done, like, it was so hard to transition that way, and so
Yeah.
but thankfully, I did that for a year, and then we fin but then I finally got a job at the school in the district, and so it has been so much nicer now that I haven't been able to do that. I've found a lot more connection, like, you and I have become best friends,
Yes. Literally
and
had no friends before you came around.
hey,
I'm
we're
not a
a
social
both of us,
person at all.
but what's funny is that, like, I'm an introvert, like, I recharge better by myself.
Amen, amen.
But, like, I love connection, I and we're so, like, deep wired to be a connection based, like, beings,
For
like
sure, yeah. We're made to be in community.
yes, and my mom told me when I first at our my very first football game that I had to go to at our last school, she's like, "Jenny, I know you're scared, but you literally have no excuse to be upset if you don't put forth an effort."
I love that, yeah.
And so, that game, I called the head coach's wife and I said, "Hey, where are you sitting?" And I did the same thing when I moved here because I was
Mhm.
like, "There's the head coach's wife has been in it long enough to
Yeah.
know."
Well, and she comes from, like, a coaching background, like, her dad was a coach, she grew up as a
Yes.
coach's kid, so
Yeah,
she knows the life as
absolutely.
it is, you know?
Yeah, and even if, like, worst case scenario, if my advice to somebody else is if the head coach's wife is not one of those, there's a wife on staff.
Somebody, yeah.
There's a wife on staff who wants to meet you, who wants to be have a relationship with you and wants to get to know you. As like it may not always feel like that, but it's true. And one of the things that I really like benefited from is that the fact that Preston was like, "Hey, so I met this coach. He's not on
Mhm.
my side of the ball, but he's like, you and his wife would get along great.
Yeah.
And let's go out on a double date together or let's do something just because he knows that like that's not my
Yeah, like, he's the initiator in that,
yes.
essentially. I mean, that's kinda what happened with us, like,
Yes.
literally both of our husbands were like, "Hey, I think you would really like
Yeah.
this person's wife," and I was like, I probably wouldn't." And Phil was like, "No, you would," because like, I've seen you at football games,
Yeah.
but, it was always one of those things, like, I was with kids or I was on the sidelines coaching or working or whatever, and I was like, "Philip, she seems, like, very, like, people-y," and then now that I've gotten to know you, I'm like, "Oh my god, like, that was not like, why
Yeah.
was that my first impression of you?"
Well,
But it's
that's
because
funny.
you are, like, you're someone who's all in. Where you're at, like,
Yeah.
where your feet are, that's where you're gonna be, and even if it pains you,
Yeah.
you're going to make sure that everybody in that section or that not section, I didn't
But
mean to say
yeah.
section, but you know what I mean. That area feels like welcomed and like a part of
Yeah.
whatever's happening. And that's important.
Yeah, for sure. And those are like the biggest things. It's like be who you're gonna be. You're not gonna get along with everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah,
And I
100%.
think that that's a scary thing to say, and that's a scary thing to like hear as a coach's
Yeah.
wife, like being like, you're not for everybody, and that's
Oh
okay.
my gosh, these kids. I'm so sorry, y'all.
But the other thing on the other end of that is like, if you take a chance, you might have made your best friend. Like,
Exactly. Like I've learned that too. Like you have to be who you expect people to be.
yeah,
Like you cannot have all these expectations for people and then want to cower in the side. And I
yeah,
really should. And like, so as I've gotten older, I'm like, okay, I can't be mad at people if they don't want to be my friend, if I'm not doing anything to be friendly back. Now, if I'm trying to be friendly and they don't want to be my friend, then fine, whatever, forget you
yeah,
too. But I can't be that way if I'm not actually putting forth anything
absolutely.
with that. And what you said about community is hard because even though we were not in a coaching family
Mhm.
prior to coming here, we were in a really good just church and
Yeah,
environmental like friendly. Hold on, let me think of my words. Church and like environment community that was so,
yeah,
so strong. I mean, I remember because I'm actually the one who told Philip to apply for a job, but then he didn't get a job and I got a job instead. And I was furious. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "Are we still going to go?" And he was like, "Yeah, we're still going to go. What do you mean?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, you didn't get a job. I like
right.
my current job."
Yeah,
And, um, he was like, "No, like, this is where we're gonna go." I was like, "Well, crap. Okay, I guess we're gonna go." And I remember making a pros and cons list of reasons we should stay and reasons we should go. And I remember like looking at it and I was like, because for us, it was the opposite. We were hours away from we were 2 hours away from our family.
yeah,
We had kids. This was our alma mater, and Philip and I both went to this high school and graduated from this high school. So it was like, we can't not go.
right.
But like, also, do we have to go? And I
Yeah,
remember that was the hardest thing is you losing that community. And I'll be honest, I didn't feel like I really had community until probably the last like year or two.
yeah,
And it's just because I wasn't putting myself out there and I wasn't trying to connect with other people. Like I dove into my work and focused on my work. And outside of work, I didn't really have people or like anything. And so that's important is finding that community no matter where you're going. And if the Lord transitions us elsewhere,
yeah,
that's going to be like number one is like finding your people because it can be really lonely and isolating. Especially because nobody understands except for the people that you're around. Like,
exactly.
nobody even my teacher friends, like, they don't get it. They get it, but they don't get it, you
Yeah,
know? They think they get it, but then they really don't get it.
absolutely. And that's like trying to connect with the wives on staff. Like, I'm so glad that like we do a lot more as a group.
Yeah.
Um Now, like I think that's been one of the things that we've like tried to really focus on because we know how important community is, and we know like
100%.
we can only do this together. And I
Mhm.
I truthfully think that like watching you with Theo and like try first season with a kid, I was like, I'm gonna do what I would want somebody to do for me.
Yeah.
And if that's like give me the baby so you can go to the bathroom, or like
Literally.
give me the baby just so you can have a break. Like, even though we're in the middle of a game, like, he and I can just sit here and pace, like,
Yeah.
because I'm a pacer during the game. I'm like, and then on the flip side of that, it's like, um, checking in on each other because one of their parents is sick or
Yeah.
something like that. Like, we've had a lot of instances with that this last season, and I'm like, it's so cool to see the families show up.
Oh,
The coaching
100%.
families will show up, and that's something that's so special.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a household where you show up.
Yeah.
Even if you have nothing else to offer, sometimes some people just need you to be there.
Yeah, sometimes it's just presents.
Yeah,
Like,
and
not
so
presents like gifts, like your presents.
yes, absolutely, and it's been so nice to see that being reciprocated, like,
100%.
across the thing, and you know that they're gonna show up. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about if if something happened, like, worst case scenario, something happened and I needed people to be there.
Yeah, I think that was so special, like, because this was my very first football season with a newborn.
Yeah.
And just I mean, granted, I had older kids, but, like, they were ball boys, they were on the field, so
Yeah.
I literally felt like a brand new mom all over again. I was like, "I don't know
You
what I'm
rocked it.
doing," like and I just remember there were plenty of times where we're sitting there and Theo was being fussy, and one of the other wives was like, "Here, I'll
Yeah.
feed him, like, just pass him down," and I just was like, "Okay, whatever, here you go," and it just
Yeah.
gave me a minute to breathe and not f but also not feel like I'm burdening somebody else because 'cause
Yeah.
they're offering, you know? And a lot of the wives, I think all the wives for the most part on our staff have older kids, and
Yeah.
so they were
They're like,
happy to
"Yes,
have the
give me the
baby. They were like,
baby."
"Give me the baby," all the baby fevers. And then as the season went on, it became a lot easier to be like, "Hey, I need to go to the bathroom," or
Yeah.
"Hey, I need to go check on one of my older boys," or whatever the
Yeah.
case is. And that's really important because like people don't think about that. Like
Yeah.
out like in the stands, like other people, they don't really like, they're like, "Oh, well, that's your kid." I'm like, "I know
Right.
it's my kid, but, like, I also could use some help because my husband is everywhere
Yeah.
else," you know?
It's nice to have a
Um,
tribe.
yeah, for sure, and I think that, like, being intentional about finding those people and because the
Absolutely.
thing is, we have just on I'm going based on, like, our numbers for Saturday, but there's what, 26 coaches that we feed, 26 to 20 I
Yeah.
would say 30, let's just say 30 for fun. There's 30 coaches on staff. That means there's probably at least 25 to 30 wives
Yeah.
on staff
Or significant others, yeah.
or yeah, or girlfriends, whatever, partners. And trying to make friends with 30 people is going to be difficult. And so if you
Yeah.
find your few, then
Yeah.
that'll work too. And it doesn't even have to be like connecting with them. It doesn't even have to be like this big grand thing. Like
Yeah.
it can be little things of like, hey, before the season starts, do y'all want to grab dinner? Or hey,
Absolutely.
like this season, excuse me, this season, we're doing like a little like door hanger
I'm so
party, like
excited about
crafting
that.
party. And like if you want to come, come. If you don't, that's cool too. I'm not gonna hate on you for not coming, but
Yeah.
like the door's open. And I think opening that door because I do feel like on our staff we have a lot of people that are also not very people-y.
Yeah.
And so opening that door to them and giving them the choice, forcing us to go out of our comfort zone and not forcing them to
Right.
always be the ones.
Yeah.
I will say one thing I miss the most about our staff, and you weren't here
Yeah.
when we did this, and I get now why we stopped doing it, but every Friday night on
Mhm.
home games, they would have like a coach's party after the game
Oh, that's fun.
at somebody's house, and we would do like dinner and all this kind of stuff. And we did it before COVID,
Yeah.
and then when COVID happened, we had to stop doing it.
Right.
And I remember because I talked to Lauren, our head coach's wife, and I was like, "Hey, are we ever gonna" like, we bought a house during COVID, so I was
Yeah.
ready, right? Like, I was
Yeah.
so ready to host our coach's party. And she was like, "Girl, no, we're not doing that again." I was like, "But COVID's like,
Yeah.
everything goes back to normal now." And she's like, "No, like, it's just too hard," because a lot of them at that
Had
time
a lot of younger
had younger
kids.
kids
Yeah.
that would, wake up Saturday morning and you gotta go to football or volleyball or whatever.
Right.
And I didn't understand it then because I had a 2-year-old and a 3-year a
Right. It's
5-year-old. My
different.
great
Yeah.
my in-laws watched them.
Yeah.
And, now that I told her, I think it was this past season, I was like, "Girl, I know why you stopped doing those
Yeah.
things because I had"
It's a
Jordan
lot.
was in football this year, so we started games at 8, 7, 8 o'clock in the
Woo.
morning, we had to be there at 7 a.m. And coming home on a Friday night to
Mhm.
party until and it wasn't even a party, it was just like a,
It's
"Let's
just a
hang out."
hangout, like, have dinner, debrief.
Yes, and that
Yeah.
really gave you an opportunity to, like, get to know other people on
Absolutely.
staff, so, but there's ways you can do it. It doesn't always have to be this, like, formal thing,
Yeah.
you know?
I think it's cool because you can tell a lot of people, like, some people may not wanna host, that not may not be their gift or, like, whatever that is,
Mhm.
but everybody wants to be included. Everybody wants to be acknowledged, like, even if, they say no, like, keep inviting them because at some
Yeah,
point, it's going to work out to where they're like, "Okay, my schedule finally lines up, I wanna go, I wanna do it," and
yeah,
it's like, nobody wants to be left out, like, wants
100%.
everybody wants inclusivity, like, they don't know what they're missing, and again, like you said, there are 25, 30 wives or something to get on staff, but there's somebody in that group that I can probably be sure that you would click with, you would get
Oh,
along with.
for sure.
And, I think that's I'm actually reading a book right now called Find Your People.
I know I
Um,
looked for it today at the library and it wasn't there. And I was like,
and it's been so good. I'm not super far into it, but, like, that was one of the things that they talk about proximity and the people you're around all the time, and we're around coaches' wives, like,
yeah.
and so 1 year already got a good start, and, like, I think I can't remember what her ratio is, but she's like, um, then you find 5 people that are, like,
Mhm.
actually physically close to you, like, who do you live next to? Like, who lives within a 10-mile radius or whatever that is,
Yeah.
and then, going from there and saying, like, "Okay, I'm really interested in this. This is what you're really interested in." And that's, like, kinda one of the things that you and I connected on.
For
It's like,
sure.
we both really like to read, like, we both like the same genre of books, like,
Yeah.
and that's kinda, like, been one of our connecting things, and so it's been really fun because you, like, learn that about different groups. Like, every
Mhm.
relationship is gonna be different, and you get what you put in.
Yeah. And your friendships with people are going to be different, and that's gonna be okay. Like, everyone, like, we connect about certain things, but there's also things that it's like we're never gonna understand because
Yeah.
we just haven't reached that level yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although I feel like at this point, nothing has. I don't think there's been anything that we haven't covered between the two of us. I'm
Maybe
like
no.
thinking of different things. I'm like, nope,
No.
we've checked, we've
Talk
done,
talked
talked
about
about that one, talked about that one,
that.
talked about that one. That's also taken time and
Oh, yeah.
effort because I could easily be like, okay, it's cool. We can hang out at football games, but like outside of football games, like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that. But it's about putting forth whatever you're getting back.
Yeah.
And
I do think
now we
it's
text every single day, and I
yeah.
feel like it is what it is.
It's funny because I think, it's kinda like high risk, high reward, like, you're scared to do it, like, send the
Yes,
text message, like,
yes,
because
yes,
they may be sitting there thinking like, "Oh, I wonder how they're doing. I wonder how so and so is doing." Like,
yeah,
you haven't seen them because there are some wives that we don't see much because they work outside of the district or whatever
mm-hmm,
that looks like, and so we don't see them except for on Friday nights.
yeah,
And so it's like, just send the text message. Like, if you're thinking about them, like, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. I hope you're having a good
yeah.
week." Like, that's gonna go a way longer way in, like, trying to build a relationship because the next time they see you, they're gonna be like, "Oh, she
And it's
wants to be
gonna
my
feel
friend."
awkward, and that's okay, like,
Yeah.
embrace the awkward. I remember, like, speaking of that, like, back when I think we were in college or something like that, I remember somebody telling us, like, "If they come across your mind, like, that's God's way of saying, like, you need to reach out, like, there's a
Yeah.
reason why they came across your mind."
It's a
And
nudge for a reason.
I remember this girl, I hadn't talked to her since high school. This has nothing to do with coaching, but it makes me think of this.
Yeah.
So this girl, I hadn't talked to her since high school. And Philip and I it's probably had at least been 5, 6 years since high
Mhm.
school. And I had a dream about her. Like it was like she was like in my dream randomly.
Yeah.
And her and I were not like best friends in high school. Like we were cool, but it wasn't
Yeah.
like we hung out on the weekends or anything like that. And so I remember texting her and I was like, "Hey girl, like just wanted to check and see how you're doing." The next day, come to find out like her dad had been in a car accident and was like hanging on by like a
Yeah.
thread and like all this stuff had been going on in her
Right.
life and I was like, "That's insane." Like I will never forget that story because anytime someone comes across my mind, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Crap, now I got to text them." Like now I have to think of you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like because I feel like it's God's way of saying like there's something going
Yeah.
on you need and even if it's just like like, "Hey, it's been rough." Like, "Okay, cool." Or sometimes it's like, "Things have been great." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Awesome.
'Cause
Me
then you get to
too."
celebrate that with them too and, like, be with them
Yeah,
about that. That's so fun. I
for
love
sure.
that.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. And now she's great. She's thriving. Her dad's alive and
Oh, I
great.
love
Like, I catch
that.
up with them, like, on Instagram and stuff like that.
That's so fun. I think, that's part of the thing about social media that can be so fun and so cool. And it's like there's a lot of negativity around social media and,
For
like, what
sure.
it can do. But trying kind of along with those lines, I've tried to be because I want intentionality, so somebody else wants it too, right? So
Mhm.
it's like anytime I have friends from college that are like doing really cool things. And so if I see them post, I'm like one of the girls that I went to college with, she started a balloon arch business and
What? That's so cool.
she's thriving. Like she's doing so good. And I like swiped up in her DMs. I said, "Girl, I'm so impressed by you. Like you're
Girls supporting
doing
girls.
yes." And I was like, because I thought it in my head and I was like, why don't I tell her that? It literally
Yeah.
like takes 30 seconds. And, like, if that's the end of the
And the
conversation
thing is, if she doesn't respond, it's not like you see her every day anyways. Like,
yeah,
it is what it is. Like,
like, and,
okay.
you'd be
I
lying
say
if
that and
somebody,
I'm
like
like I have anxiety about that. So I'm like, I'm over here like,
but
girl, who cares? But then I'm like, I care.
but also, like, I would want somebody to tell me that. You know what I mean?
For
Like,
sure.
so it's like, why the heck not?
I feel like there's such like a is it called dopamine? Like the thing
Yes.
like makes you happy or whatever. I feel like there's such a dopamine hit when people like your stuff or like
Yeah.
comment on it. And it could be people that you never talk to, but it's like even just like little things like happy birthday or like there's
Yes.
such like this like, oh, like everybody like you said earlier, everybody wants to be noticed.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be invited. And so like that's
They
another
may not
way.
be wanna be the center of attention, but they wanna feel like someone saw them
Why do I feel like we're like preaching to ourselves right now? Because we both
because
hate
we
people.
both need to hear it.
We
That's
both hate
why.
people, but we're both like, girl, just go for it.
Encouraging queens, that's us.
Yes.
Okay, how do you handle fans talking about your spouse in the stands?
So I'm kind of lucky
Yeah.
because Philip's first 2 years on varsity staff, I was the varsity cheer coach. And so
Ayo.
I was on the sidelines. And so the only people I really heard talking mess was the coaches themselves.
That
I didn't
part.
really have to deal with it, you know. But I really didn't have to deal with fans a lot.
Yeah.
Just because of where the coaches sit, we sit literally like up against the railing on the track. And
Right.
so I didn't really hear it much, but this past year was my first year like actually in the stands the entire game.
Yeah.
Um and it was eye-opening. It was
Yes.
I try not to take some of it personally because Philip's in the press box. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, "Psh, they're not talking about my husband," but then I'm like, crap, like he's the one like talking to
Yeah.
them. So maybe they are kind of talking about my husband. But I don't know. I try really hard to like tune them out.
Yeah.
But I know there's a couple instances where I was like, if these people don't go away, I'm going to flip. And I have it because I have a very short temper about things.
Yeah.
And I really noticed it because the boys that started picking up on it a couple of times, they'd be like, "These people don't even know what they're talking," like they would
Yeah.
start talking mess. I'm like, Maddox, Jordan, shut up. Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna get like thrown
Yeah.
out of a game or
You have
something.
you learn a thick skin real quick as a coach's kid.
For sure. Like, I can see it with them. Like, they are so protective
Yeah.
of like their dad and like they want to be Wildcats. So like they're super protective of the team.
Absolutely.
But really just trying to like tune them out. Like you're listening to people who probably like peaked in junior high or pee wee
Right?
football and think that especially because we're from a small town.
Yeah.
So everybody has an opinion about everything.
Mhm.
And trying to remember that like they have no idea
None.
what goes on to it. And people don't understand that like your husband's job in a sense like relies on
Yeah.
teenagers. You know what I mean? Like yes and no, but like you hear about it all the time. Like
Yeah.
coaches aren't winning, so they get fired. And so it's
Yeah.
like there's this added amount of pressure because since we live in a small town, if we lose on Friday night, you better
Oh.
believe that if Philip is going to the grocery store on Sunday,
Yep.
someone is going to be like, "Coach, man, what happened? Like,
Every time.
what do we do?
Every
Why'd we
time.
run that play? We should have ran this play or throw the ball,
Yeah.
whatever." So I try very hard to ignore it, but like
Yeah.
luckily like Philip is very calm natured. Like he's just like, "Oh man, it just wasn't our game to win." And I'm like, I'm over here like talking
Yeah.
mess in the back of
Right.
my head kind of a thing. But there was one time where you had a friend that came.
Yes, Eugene Fitzgerald. That's actually not his middle name, I just gave him
I
that
am
one.
so sorry, Eugene. But yeah, I remember he was like just commenting on like the
Yes.
game. He wasn't
I
even
think
saying
he
anything
was I'm
bad.
pretty sure he was just being petty. He was just, like, saying every single thing that we did wrong, like, everybody saw that, like
Yes, but he was like sitting with like our coaches group, and I was like,
and he's loud,
I'm
so
like trying to not say anything because I don't know him. Like
yeah,
I at the time, like I knew he was like with y'all, but I didn't know like how
who he
close
was,
y'all were.
yeah.
And I was like, if this man does not shut up, and I'm just
You
remember
literally texted me and you're like, "Who is that?"
I know. I was like, and then you were like, oh, I think he was like his brother or best friend or so. It was
Yeah,
like
they're
really,
brothers from another
yeah.
mother.
When you were like,
Yeah.
they were really close. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna tell her I feel. I'm not gonna. I think I said something about like he's getting on my nerves or
Yeah,
something
you
like that. Like
did.
I tried to be very nice about
Yeah.
it, but I literally came home and I was like, Philip, Jenny brought this man, and
And he knows
and
exactly
he
who
was
he is. He
cracking
probably
up.
just laughed.
But then I feel like you got me back because the
Ugh,
same thing happened when
with
Philip's
his
brother
brother,
came, which Dion, love you, but you made Jenny
literally,
so
at
mad.
one point, I was like I looked at him, I said, "Listen, we both know that that's what happened, but you can shut your mouth."
'Cause
And I
he's
didn't
in
feel bad because
yeah,
I knew it was his brother, and
yes.
he's like, "I'm just," I said, "I know what you're saying. Shut up."
Well, and, like, that's the thing is, like, Philip's family is very football
Yeah.
oriented, so, like, they talk through things,
Oh,
like
yeah.
and he's one of those, like Dion's definitely one of those people that's like, "I see something and I see where it was wrong," which I feel like is the same thing with Eugene. He's
Yeah.
like, "I see it. This is a clear opening." We're like, "Well, clearly we can see it's an opening because he ran right past our
And
defender or whatever,"
and
you
I think
know?
my thing when people say that stuff specifically is because me and Preston I always like to ask Preston, like, what's going on, like,
Yeah.
a debrief after practices, so it's like, I know that's what happened because they've been working on it all dang
Yes.
week, and he
Yes.
still missed this freaking thing. So, yeah,
Yes.
we're
You're
all
like, "I
pissed.
know he didn't do his whatever."
Yeah,
I
and it's
mean
like, I don't need you to point it out because it's, like, already like, they don't know that it's sensitive for me because we've talked about
yeah.
it 5 times this week, but I'm already, like, annoyed. So it's
Yeah,
just
like, you've
amplifies.
heard that this could be a problem all
Yeah,
week long, and then it actually is a problem, you're like,
yeah,
"Why didn't Johnny do his thing?"
and then
You're just as mad.
yeah, and then everybody's like, "That coach sucks," and I'm like, "I will fight somebody,"
I
because it's
know.
like
I
because they
know.
don't know what happens at practice. They don't know the things that they work on all day,
Yes. They
all
don't know
week.
anything they don't know that it's a 7-day week
Yes.
job,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I don't know if that's normal other places, but I know, like
Mostly, yeah.
I'm like, "Y'all don't realize, like, he literally works Sunday to Sunday
Yeah.
from July until hopefully December,"
Yes.
and so they don't realize how much thought goes into all of this,
Yeah.
and I remember, like, sometimes I'm very afraid to, like, wear things that, like, show
Yes.
I'm a coach's wife, like, when
Same.
we got the shirts made with, like, the guys with
Yeah.
their faces on it, I was so scared to wear it. I was like, "Oh my god, like, what if" and like I said,
I'm very
luckily,
selective where
Philip
we wear it, yeah.
I'm like, luckily, Philip is in the press box, so, like, he doesn't,
No,
doesn't get
everybody knows
seen.
who my husband is, so yeah, thanks for that.
But
But
it's like,
yeah.
I'm like, do I want people to know who I am? But then it's like, what and then the boys wanna wear their football jerseys. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, there's our last name,
Yeah.
out there for everybody to see. So it is one of those things like you kind of wanna be secretive in the stands
Yeah.
because you just never know who's gonna be around you.
Yeah.
But we're very lucky that like we have like
We
our
have really good people around us. Like, we all sit together, the coaches' wives, and
yeah,
then we have some families that are, like, really close to us, that are good to the
that get
coaches.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at at our energy game, one of them stood up for us
Oh, I remember that. Yes, I remember
because
you telling me about that.
all of us were standing because it was a very good game. If you did not watch the energy game or know anything about it, first of
Go
all,
watch
go
it,
watch
first of
it.
all. That was the redemption we needed that season.
So, 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 so good. But we're standing, right? All of us are standing and we're just like, I'm pacing because that's just, or not pacing, I'm like swaying or
Yeah,
whatever
right?
because
As
it's
you
like,
can at NRG.
yeah. And there's a guy like a couple rows behind us that's like, y'all need to sit down. And I turned so quick. And thankfully, one of the families that's really close to us coaches, he said, he turned and he said, "You
Mhm.
see all these people standing up? They're standing up for a reason, and I'm not sitting down until they sit down. So you might as well either get up and
Like,
move or stand up
right?
yourself."
Bro, just stand up. Like, it's an intense game. Just stand up.
Yeah,
Like,
like
what's wrong with you?
also we're at Energy. There's a big screen.
That's the hardest part about away games is like our home games, like we have a specific section that we sit in
Yeah,
that is a purposefully away from everybody.
yeah,
And at away games, we're just thrown into the thick of it. And
yeah.
it's like sometimes that's like the sucky part about away games because I mean, the thing about our town is they show up to away games.
Which
Like,
is great. It's
I love
so
it.
fun to have people travel, but sometimes they can be very bad.
Yeah, like our last playoff game, it was hard being in the stands
Oh,
because
it was rough.
everybody had something to say. And it was like, they don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can't really fault people because, like, they don't know that we're family sitting right there.
Mhm.
Most people probably know who, like, the head coach's wife are, but
Yeah.
everybody else, like, they don't really
It was really cool because I do feel like people started to notice who we were because
yeah,
we
we would
show up in
always sat
troves.
together,
Yeah, we
yeah.
all, like we move together. We move as a group, which is so nice, and so I think that some people around us were like, "Oh, no, that's a coach's wife. You, like,
Yeah.
chill out."
Yeah, I think towards the end of the season, people started recognizing it, especially because
Mhm.
like, we were wearing our shirts and
Yeah.
your fat head.
Yes, my fat head, and then my husband, 'cause I'm that wife
And
that's
I
like,
love it, I
I'm gonna
love
be
it.
extra and bougie, and it's like, it just is what it is.
I'm telling
I'm
you,
the loudest one in
we
the
are
stands.
eventually gonna get everybody to have a fat head of their coach, like,
Well,
we have
I
to.
I think I flat out asked somebody, I said, "Your wife said that you would divorce him if you got a fat head, is that true?" And he's like, "No, but I would not like it at all." I said,
If
"Whoa."
Philip was on the field, I would get one. If
But
he
it was so
I would get
helpful
one.
at NRG
It
because
really was.
Preston will look for me because he knows where I
Mhm.
sit. He's, like, typically everywhere we go, and if he can't see me, I'll just, like, throw it up. So
Yeah.
it's, like, even after games, like, when we would try to come I just put my
Oh,
fat head and
yeah.
walk towards him, and we'd find him a new
Girl, it was
spot.
helpful for me at NRG trying to find
Yes.
you in the middle of all of that. I just, like you were like, "Look for the fat head," and I was like, "Oh, I see it."
Yeah.
It was good, but I mean, we have to kinda make it fun ourselves, like, we're
Yeah.
there, you're cheering on a bunch of high school kids, but, like, really and truly, like, you're cheering on
Be your
your
coach.
spouse,
Yeah.
and you're trying to be their biggest fan and their biggest supporter because everybody else, all the other thousands of people are there to support
Yes.
the kids, like, we need to be there to support the men, you
Yeah.
know? Anyways, well, this has been another episode of Fourth and
Whatever.